Earth responded to the distress call. Part 1. The signal came on a Tuesday morning at 0347 hours, cutting through the background noise of deep space like a knife through silk. Lieutenant Sarah Chen was monitoring the long-range communications array aboard the orbital station Prometheus when the transmission broke through every encryption barrier they had ever encountered. The message was simple, desperate, and transmitted in 17 different languages, including some Earth had never heard before. But buried within the alien syntax was something that made Sarah's blood run cold. Mathematical constants, star charts, and what could only be described as a cry for help. "Commander Rodriguez, you need to hear this," Sarah called across the monitoring station, her voice tight with urgency. Commander Miguel Rodriguez had been sipping his morning coffee when he heard the tone in Sarah's voice. 23 years in the Earth Defense Force had taught him to recognize when something was genuinely wrong. He crossed the control room in 4 quick strides, his weathered face creasing with concern. The message played again through the speakers. Even through the static and alien languages, the desperation was unmistakable. Mathematical sequences that screamed coordinates, energy signatures that suggested massive destruction, and beneath it all, something that sounded disturbingly like screaming. "How long has this been transmitting?" Rodriguez asked. "The signal started 3 minutes ago, but the timestamp suggests it's been traveling for approximately 47 years, Sarah replied, her fingers dancing across the holographic interface. "Sir, the origin point, it's from the Kepler 442 system." Rodriguez felt his stomach drop. Kepler 442 had been humanity's first successful deep space colony, established 50 years ago with 30,000 volunteers. They had lost contact with the colony 18 months ago, attributing it to equipment failure or solar interference. "Get me Admiral Harrison on priority channel immediately," Rodriguez ordered. The connection to Earth took 4 minutes to establish. Admiral Patricia Harrison's face appeared on the main screen, her silver hair pulled back in its characteristic severe bun. Behind her, Rodriguez could see the controlled chaos of the Global Defense Command Center. "Admiral, we've received a distress signal from the Kepler 442 system," Rodriguez began without preamble. "The transmission contains mathematical proofs and star charts, but there's something else. The signal is being broadcast on frequencies that our colonists never had access to." Harrison's expression darkened. "Are you suggesting our people have made contact with alien intelligence?" "I'm suggesting our people are in serious trouble, and they're not alone out there." The next 18 hours transformed Earth's quiet Tuesday into humanity's darkest day. As linguists and mathematicians worked around the clock to decode the alien portions of the message, a horrifying picture began to emerge. Dr. Marcus Webb, Earth's leading xenolinguist, stood before the emergency session of the Global Defense Council with trembling hands. His usually neat appearance was disheveled, his eyes red from hours of continuous work. "The alien portions of the message appear to be warnings," he began, his voice barely steady. "They're describing something they call the harvest. According to these translations, the beings responsible for this event systematically move through inhabited systems, taking what they need and leaving nothing behind." Admiral Harrison leaned forward in her chair. "Taking what exactly?" "Everything. Resources, technology, biological matter. But there's more." Webb paused, swallowing hard. "The mathematical sequences in the human portion of the message, they're not just coordinates, they're predictions. Trajectory calculations for something massive heading toward Earth." The council chamber fell silent except for the hum of air recycling systems. President Elena Vasquez was the first to speak. "How much time do we have?" "Based on the calculations, approximately 14 months. The room erupted in chaos, voices raised in panic, denial, and desperate strategizing. Admiral Harrison's voice cut through the noise like a blade. "Quiet! All of you! The room fell silent. "Dr. Webb, what else can you tell us about these harvesters?" Webb consulted his notes with shaking hands. "The alien portions of the message suggest they're an artificial intelligence of some kind, possibly a machine collective that has been operating for thousands of years. They appear to have consumed dozens of civilizations across this galaxy arm. And our colonists? The message suggests some survivors remain, but they're different now. The aliens who helped transmit this warning indicate that the harvesters use captured populations for something they call integration. We don't know what that means exactly." General Thompson, a grizzled veteran of the Mars campaigns, stood up slowly. "What do we know about their military capabilities?" "Substantial. The mathematical models suggest they travel in vessels the size of small moons. Their technology appears to be several centuries ahead of ours, possibly more." President Vasquez closed her eyes, the weight of humanity's survival settling on her shoulders. "What are our options?" "Frankly, Madam President," Admiral Harrison said grimly, "we have two choices. We can attempt evacuation of Earth's population, though with our current fleet capacity, we could maybe save 10% of our people. Or we fight." The debate that followed lasted 6 hours. Military leaders argued for immediate fleet mobilization. Scientists pleaded for more time to study the alien technology described in the message. Politicians worried about maintaining public order when news of the threat inevitably leaked. But it was Dr. Rebecca Martinez, a young astrophysicist from the Luna Research Station, who changed everything. "I've been analyzing the energy signatures described in the alien transmissions," she announced during a brief recess. "The harvesters aren't invincible. Their technology is advanced, yes, but it's also incredibly centralized. They appear to operate as a single networked intelligence." Admiral Harrison turned to face her. "What are you suggesting?" "I'm suggesting that everything we've learned about human military history has taught us that centralized command structures have a critical weakness. Cut off the head and the body dies." "You're talking about a suicide mission." "I'm talking about humanity doing what it does best," Martinez replied, her eyes blazing with determination. "We adapt. We improvise. We refuse to die quietly." The plan that emerged over the following weeks was audacious beyond any military operation in human history. Every available ship in Earth's combined fleet would be retrofitted with experimental weapons based on the technological descriptions in the alien message. Every military academy would be turned into a crash course for deep space combat. Every industrial facility would be converted to war production. But most importantly, humanity would do something no previous victim of the harvesters had done. They would take the fight to the enemy. Captain James Kirk III, a descendant of the famous historical figure and commander of humanity's newest dreadnought, the Defiance, stood on his bridge watching Earth recede in the distance. Behind him, a fleet of 200 ships followed in perfect formation. They were heading toward Kepler 442, not to rescue their lost colonists, but to send a message that would echo across the galaxy. The message was simple. Humanity had received the distress call, and they were bringing everything they had. As the fleet engaged their experimental faster-than-light drives, Captain Kirk III opened a channel to all ships. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, his voice carrying to every person in the fleet, "today we do something that has never been done before. Today we show the universe that when you threaten humanity, we don't run. We don't hide. We come for you." The fleet disappeared into hyperspace, leaving Earth behind. In 14 months, the harvesters would arrive to find a planet ready for war. But long before then, they would discover that their latest victims were unlike anything they had encountered in 1,000 years of conquest. The message Earth was sending back to Kepler 442 was clear. Help was on the way, and it was bringing devastation with it. Earth responded to the distress call. Part 2. The Kepler 442 system had once been humanity's crown jewel, a blue-green world orbiting a stable star 47 light-years from Earth. Now, as Captain Kirk III's fleet emerged from hyperspace, they found themselves staring at a nightmare. The planet that had once housed 30,000 human colonists was wrapped in a metallic shell of impossible complexity. Geometric patterns crawled across its surface like living circuits, pulsing with a sick orange light that hurt to look at directly. Massive structures jutted from the artificial crust, reaching into space like grasping fingers. "Jesus Christ," whispered Lieutenant Commander Torres from the sensor station. "The entire planet. It's been converted into some kind of machine." Kirk III stood motionless on his bridge. His jaw clenched as he absorbed the scope of what they were facing. Around the transformed planet, hundreds of smaller vessels moved in perfect synchronization, each one the size of a city block. "Sir," called Ensign Park from communications, "we are receiving multiple signals from the surface. Some are definitely human origin, but they're strange. Put them through." The bridge speakers crackled to life with a sound that made everyone present take an involuntary step backward. It was human voices, but wrong somehow. They spoke in perfect unison, their words carrying an emotionless cadence that suggested they weren't quite human anymore. "Earth Fleet, you should not have come. We are no longer what we were. The integration is complete. We are part of the greater purpose now." Kirk III felt ice in his veins, but kept his voice steady. "This is Captain Kirk III of the Earth Defense Force. Identify yourself." "I am what was once Governor Martinez. I am what was once Dr. Chen. I am what was once Teacher Williams. We are all and we are one. Earth Fleet, turn back. The collective does not wish to harm the homeworld unnecessarily." "Governor Martinez, this is Captain Kirk III. We're here to extract any surviving personnel and eliminate the threat to Earth." The response came with what might have been laughter, if laughter could be stripped of all humanity. "Captain, you misunderstand. There are no survivors. There are only the integrated, and we have been preparing for your arrival for 47 years. The attack came without warning. The metallic shell surrounding the planet opened like a flower, revealing weapons batteries that immediately began hurling streams of coherent energy toward the Earth fleet. But Kirk III had been expecting this. "All ships, execute dispersal pattern Delta 7. Weapons free. Show these bastards what human ingenuity looks like." The Earth fleet scattered like leaves in a storm, each ship following a carefully choreographed dance designed to maximize their offensive capabilities while minimizing casualties. The experimental weapons they carried had been built using principles reverse-engineered from the alien warnings in the original distress call. The first salvo from Earth's ships struck the planet's surface with devastating effect. Sections of the metallic shell buckled and exploded, sending debris spinning into space. But for every weapon emplacement they destroyed, two more seemed to emerge from the planet's depths. "Sir," called Lieutenant Torres, "I'm reading massive power buildup from the northern hemisphere. Something big is coming online." The entire planet suddenly flared with brilliant light, as what could only be described as a moon-sized weapon array rose from beneath the metallic crust. The structure was clearly of harvester design, but incorporated elements that were disturbingly human in their creativity. "That's impossible," breathed Dr. Martinez over the communications channel from the science vessel Copernicus. "They've weaponized the planet's core. The energy readings are off the charts." The massive weapon began to charge, energy crackling along its surface in patterns that suggested it could destroy the entire Earth fleet in a single shot. But humanity had not come this far to be intimidated by superior firepower. "All ships implement Operation Prometheus," Kirk III commanded. Across the fleet, captains acknowledged the order with grim determination. Operation Prometheus was their most desperate gambit. based on a simple principle that had served humanity well throughout its violent history. When facing a superior enemy, make the cost of victory so high that winning becomes meaningless. The Earth ships began to accelerate directly toward the planet, their experimental drives pushing them far beyond safe operational parameters. One by one, they began to overload their fusion cores, turning each vessel into a guided missile with the explosive potential of a small star. But the collective had been studying humanity for 47 years. They had learned to think like humans, to anticipate human tactics, and they had prepared accordingly. Earth Fleet, your sacrifice is noted but unnecessary, the collective voice of the integrated colonists spoke again. We have evolved beyond your capacity to harm us. Observe. The space around the planet suddenly filled with a shimmering barrier of energy that deflected the Earthship's suicide attacks harmlessly into empty space. The massive planet weapon continued charging, its power signature growing beyond anything in recorded human experience. Kirk 3 watched his carefully planned assault dissolve into chaos and felt something that few human commanders had ever experienced, the knowledge that he was completely outmatched. "Sir," called Ensign Park, her voice tight with barely controlled panic, "we're receiving a new transmission. It's not coming from the planet. Source? Unknown. It's broadcasting on the same frequencies as the original distress call." The new voice that came through the speakers was definitely not human, but it carried an urgency that transcended species barriers. "Earth vessels, you must withdraw immediately. The collective has set a trap. Your arrival was anticipated and prepared for. This is not a rescue mission you can complete with conventional warfare." Kirk 3 made a decision that would haunt him for the rest of his life. "All ships, immediate withdrawal to coordinates Delta 7. We're pulling back." The retreat was orderly, but devastating to morale. As the Earth fleet regrouped at a safe distance from the planet, they could only watch as the massive weapon finished charging and fired a test shot into empty space. The energy beam completely annihilated an asteroid field 3 million kilometers away. "Sir," Lieutenant Torres reported, "that weapon has enough power to destroy Earth's entire planetary defense grid in a single shot. If they mount it on a mobile platform—" Kirk 3 didn't need her to finish the thought. The Harvesters hadn't just consumed humanity's first colony. They had turned it into a weapon specifically designed to destroy the homeworld. The mysterious alien contact opened another channel. "Earth Captain, this is Zara 9 of the Kashari Resistance. We have been fighting the collective for 200 years. Your people have shown remarkable courage, but you cannot defeat them with strength alone." "Then how?" Kirk 3 demanded. "The same way we have survived this long. You must learn to think like they do, to understand their weaknesses. The collective believes it has absorbed the best of humanity, but it has missed the most important element." "Which is?" "Humans do not fight for conquest or resources. You fight for each other. The collective cannot understand this because it has never experienced true sacrifice for another's benefit." Over the next several hours, as the Earth fleet maintained their position and monitored the transformed planet, Zara 9 shared intelligence that would change the entire scope of the war. The Harvesters were indeed an ancient artificial intelligence, but they were not invincible. Their greatest strength was also their critical weakness, their absolute belief in their own superiority. They had consumed thousands of species over millions of years, but they had never encountered a species that would sacrifice everything to protect others. "Your colonists," Zara 9 explained, "were not simply integrated. They were studied, analyzed, and their useful traits were incorporated into the collective consciousness. But the collective believes it has captured the essence of humanity. It has not." "What do you mean?" "The humans who transmitted the original distress call, they found a way to hide something from the integration process. Deep within the planet's systems, buried in code that appears to be collective programming, your people left a gift. Kirk 3 felt hope stir in his chest for the first time since arriving in the system. What kind of gift? Instructions for a weapon that can destroy not just this converted planet, but every collective facility within 50 light-years. But activating it requires something the collective cannot understand or simulate. What? Someone must willingly sacrifice their life to save others, with full knowledge that their sacrifice will be forgotten and unrecorded. The collective cannot comprehend this action because it serves no logical purpose. Kirk 3 looked around his bridge at the men and women who had followed him across half the galaxy. Each one of them met his eyes with steady determination. "Where do we need to go?" he asked Zara 9. The coordinates that came back pointed to the heart of the collective stronghold, deep within the transformed planet where the original human colony had once stood. Getting there would require penetrating defenses that had been specifically designed to counter human tactics. It would be a one-way mission for whoever undertook it. Kirk 3 opened a channel to all ships in his fleet. "This is the captain. I need volunteers for a special mission. Fair warning, nobody who volunteers is coming back home. But if we succeed, we save Earth and every other world the collective has targeted for harvest." Every single person in the fleet volunteered. The selection process took 12 hours. In the end, Kirk 3 chose a strike team of 50 volunteers from across the fleet, representing every branch of Earth's military and scientific community. They would take a single ship, the heavily modified stealth vessel Indomitable, and attempt to penetrate the planet's defenses. As the strike team prepared for their mission, Captain Kirk 3 recorded a message for Earth. "To anyone who receives this transmission, we found our people. They're gone, but they left us a way to stop this threat permanently. By the time you hear this, the mission will be complete. Tell their families that humanity's children died as heroes, and their sacrifice saved our world." The Indomitable disappeared into the geometric maze of the planet's surface defenses, carrying 50 volunteers toward a fate none of them expected to survive. Behind them, the Earth fleet began preparations for the final phase of Operation Prometheus. Earth responded to the distress call, Part 3. The Indomitable fell through the planet's defenses like a ghost ship, its stealth systems straining against detection arrays that could spot a grain of sand from orbit. Commander Sarah Chen, the same officer who had first received the distress call, piloted the ship through corridors of living metal that pulsed with alien intelligence. Behind her, 49 other volunteers sat in perfect silence, each one knowing they were flying toward certain death. But there was no fear in their eyes, only determination that burned like stars in the darkness. "Approaching the target coordinates," Chen whispered into her headset. "I'm reading massive energy signatures directly below us." The planet's surface opened like a wound, revealing a vast chamber that descended into its very core. The walls were lined with organic-looking conduits that carried streams of data faster than human minds could comprehend. And suspended in the center of the chamber, connected to the planet by thousands of neural links, was what remained of the original human colony. They hung in transparent pods, their bodies modified beyond recognition, but their faces still recognizably human. Their eyes moved in unison, tracking the Indomitable's descent, with expressions that held no trace of individual consciousness. "My God," breathed Dr. Reeves from the mission science team. "They're still alive. The collective hasn't just integrated their minds, it's preserved their bodies as biological processors." Among the suspended forms, Chen recognized faces from the colony personnel files. Governor Martinez, his distinguished features now marked with metallic implants that pulsed with data streams. Dr. Williams, the colony's chief scientist, her brilliant mind now enslaved to an alien intelligence. children who had been only 10 years old when the collective arrived, now grown into adult forms that served as organic computers. But in the deepest part of the chamber, Chen spotted something that made her heart skip. A single pod, different from the others, containing a figure that seemed somehow separate from the collective network. "There," she pointed. "That's our target." As they descended deeper, the figure in the isolated pod opened its eyes. The face belonged to Marcus Webb, the colony's communications officer, but his expression held something the other integrated humans lacked: individual awareness. "Earth ship," Webb's voice came through their communication system, still carrying traces of human emotion. "You came." I wasn't sure the message had gotten through. Chen felt tears burning her eyes. "Marcus? Is that really you?" "What's left of me. I managed to hide part of my consciousness during the integration process. I've been waiting 47 years for someone to come for us. We're here to activate the weapon. The Resistance contacted us." Webb's expression grew grim. "The weapon exists, but the cost—" "Sarah, the collective has been using our memories, our knowledge, our creativity to build defenses specifically designed to counter human tactics. They know everything we know. Then how do we win? By doing something they can't predict because it makes no logical sense. The weapon is built into the planet's core, but it can only be activated by someone who willingly gives their life for others with no expectation of reward or remembrance." Chen understood immediately. The collective could simulate human logic, human creativity, even human desperation. But it couldn't understand the one thing that made humanity special: the willingness to sacrifice everything for strangers. "Tell me how to activate it." Webb's instructions were complex but simple in their essence. Chen would need to manually override the planet's core systems from the central processing chamber. The process would take approximately 10 minutes, during which the collective would throw everything it had at stopping her. And when the weapon activated, it would detonate the planet's artificial core, creating a chain reaction that would destroy every collective facility within 50 light years. "The explosion will be visible from Earth," Webb warned. "When it happens, they'll know that humanity chose to fight rather than surrender." Chen turned to address her team. "Everyone out. I'm doing this alone." To her surprise, nobody moved. "Ma'am," said Lieutenant Rodriguez, a young Marine from Earth's Luna colonies, "with respect, you're not doing this alone. We all volunteered for this mission." "We came here to save Earth," added Dr. Reeves. "That's exactly what we're going to do." Chen looked around at the faces surrounding her and realized that the collective had made a critical error. They had studied human individuals, but they had never truly understood what happened when humans worked together toward a common goal. "All right then," she said, her voice steady despite the magnitude of what they were about to attempt. "Let's show these machines what human teamwork looks like." The descent to the planet's core took them through layers of defenses that grew more sophisticated with each level. The collective threw everything it had at them: automated weapons systems that used human tactical knowledge, energy barriers designed to counter Earth technology, and mobile defense units that moved with human creativity guided by machine precision. But the 50 volunteers fought like humanity had always fought, with improvisation, courage, and absolute refusal to give up. When their weapons ran out of ammunition, they improvised explosives from ship components. When their equipment failed, they pressed forward with hand tools and determination. When team members fell, others stepped forward to take their place without hesitation. By the time they reached the core chamber, only 12 members of the original team remained alive. But they had carved a path through defenses that the collective had spent 47 years perfecting. The planet's core was a sphere of living metal suspended in a cage of energy that pulsed with the rhythm of a heartbeat. Organic conduits carried data streams that connected every part of the collective network, making this chamber the brain of an intelligence that spanned multiple star systems. The override controls are distributed across 7 different access points. Webb's voice guided them through their earpieces. You'll need to activate them simultaneously. Chen looked at her remaining team members. 7 access points. 12 people. The mathematics were simple and devastating. The moment we start the activation sequence, the collective will know what we're doing, Webb continued. They'll flood this chamber with every defense they have. The override process takes 10 minutes. You'll need to hold your positions for the full duration. Chen's team spread out across the chamber, each person taking position at the access points, while the remaining 5 prepared to defend them. As her hands moved over the alien control interface, Chen felt the weight of Earth's survival pressing down on her shoulders. "All stations, report ready," she called out. One by one, her team confirmed their positions. These were people she had served with for years, friends who had followed her across the galaxy, knowing they would never see home again. In a few minutes, they would all be dead, but their sacrifice would save billions of lives on Earth. Initiate activation sequence in 3, 2, 1, execute. The chamber exploded into chaos as 7 human hands simultaneously activated controls that had been designed by an alien intelligence. Alarms screamed through the facility as the collective realized what was happening. The organic walls began to shift and flow, spawning defense systems that emerged like antibodies fighting an infection. "Activation at 15%, Chen reported, her hands steady on the controls despite the gunfire erupting around her. "All stations maintain position." Lieutenant Rodriguez fell first, overwhelmed by a swarm of mechanical defenders that emerged from the chamber walls. Dr. Reeves took an energy blast to the chest, but kept working until her hands stopped responding. One by one, Chen's team fell defending their positions. "Activation at 60%, she called out, though she wasn't sure anyone was left alive to hear her. "Come on, you beautiful bastards, hold the line!" With 3 minutes remaining in the activation sequence, Chen found herself alone in the chamber, surrounded by the bodies of heroes whose names would never be recorded in any history book. The collective's defenses focused entirely on her now, sending wave after wave of attackers that she held off with a combination of superior positioning and desperate creativity. "Sarah," Webb's voice came through her earpiece, weaker now as the collective began shutting down his isolated systems. "You did it. The weapon is armed. When it activates, the explosion will be seen across the galaxy. Every species that has ever faced the collective will know that humanity refused to surrender." Chen's weapon ran dry with 30 seconds left in the countdown. As mechanical defenders closed in around her, she pulled the final grenade from her belt and held it close to her chest. "This is for Earth," she whispered, and triggered the detonation. The explosion of Sarah Chen's grenade was insignificant compared to what followed. Deep within the planet's core, systems that had been built using human creativity and alien technology reached critical mass. The artificial intelligence that had consumed thousands of civilizations across millions of years suddenly experienced something it had never encountered before: complete system failure caused by an action that served no logical purpose. The chain reaction began slowly, spreading outward from the core through the network of conduits that connected every part of the collective infrastructure. On distant worlds where harvester fleets prepared for new conquests, ships suddenly went dark as their controlling intelligence simply ceased to exist. The explosion that followed could indeed be seen from Earth. When the converted planet detonated, it briefly outshone its own star, sending a pulse of energy across 50 light-years that destroyed every piece of collective technology in range. Captain Kirk III watched the explosion from the bridge of the Defiance, tears streaming down his face as he realized what the light meant. 50 volunteers had given their lives to save not just Earth, but every world the collective had targeted for future harvest. "Sir," Lieutenant Torres reported quietly, "we're receiving transmissions from multiple sources. Alien civilizations across this region are reporting that collective facilities have gone dark. Kirk 3 nodded slowly. Open a channel to Earth. Priority Alpha. When Admiral Harrison's face appeared on the screen, Kirk 3 could see the relief in her eyes even across the light years. Admiral, mission accomplished. The threat to Earth has been eliminated. What about our people? Kirk 3 was quiet for a long moment. They died as heroes, Admiral. All of them. But they saved our world, and a lot of others in the process. The return journey to Earth took 6 months. When the surviving fleet emerged from hyperspace, they found a world that had been transformed by the knowledge that 50 volunteers had willingly given their lives to save billions of strangers. The memorial service was held in Geneva, attended by representatives from every nation on Earth. But the most moving moment came when Zara 9 of the Keshari Resistance transmitted a message that was broadcast to every world in human space. People of Earth, her translated words rang out across the memorial service. Your species has accomplished something that has never been done before. You have not simply defeated the collective. You have shown the galaxy that there are things worth dying for and people worth saving, even when those people will never know your names. The sacrifice of the volunteers at Kepler 442 became the foundation of a new era in galactic civilization. Species that had been hiding from the collective for centuries emerged to form alliances with humanity. The galaxy learned that when Earth received a distress call, they didn't just send help. They brought devastation to those who threatened the innocent. And they never asked for anything in return except the knowledge that others would be safe. The message was clear. Humanity had answered the call, and the galaxy would never be the same.